When you are reducing packaging, you're reducing costs. When you are creating a leaner supply chain with less waste, you're reducing cost. These are all good things for your business. And if it happens to be great for the planet, it's a bonus.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chains, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reid.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show.
So that was a different but still yet amazing conversation with Stephanie Mehta from Inc. and Fast Company.
Yeah, I feel really lucky to have talked to her, especially like right after the keynote she gave.
Yeah, so she moderated the keynote here at GS1 US Connect conference, and she's a journalist.
I know, and we're not.
And we're not. I mean, we're supply chain people running a podcast, but I love the insight and the honesty where she talks about like I wasn't in this field, but it gives me so much more, understanding now that we've partnered together and the exposure in different places. And, she's working at this executive level.
Yeah. She's helping us tell a story and bring barcodes, just a barcode, to life for so much more.
Yes. And in the keynote, they talked about supply chain being a team sport, but it's this journalist storytelling to get people to see the importance of standards, which are kind of not cool, but cool.
We think they're cool. And she's helping us show how cool they are.
Yeah. Integral to success for all businesses.
Yeah.
So
it was fun.
It was great. It's a lot of fun. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're delighted to have you here. We just saw you on stage with Bob Carpenter, our CEO, and our guests from Lineage and Walmart. For our audience, Stephanie is the CEO and Chief Content Officer at Mansueto Ventures, which is the parent of Inc. and Fast Company. I read Fast Company quite a bit.
That's
Comes
right.
out 6 times a year, I think.
Now it's 4 times a year, but we're online 365 days a year, 24 hours a day.
But for our audience that maybe isn't so immersed in this space, can you just give us a little more background on yourself?
Well, thank you for asking. It's my least favorite topic. I don't like talking about myself, but I am a lifelong business journalist turned CEO. I've worked for publications like the Wall Street Journal, Fortune. I was at Bloomberg for a while, spent a couple of years at Vanity Fair before becoming the editor-in-chief of Fast Company. I had that job for 4 years. And then in 2022, I made the move to CEO of the parent company. And really being a business journalist was my MBA.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Liz and I have been doing the podcast here for a few years now. And today we showed up and we're like, oh, shoot, there's a verbal exam with the professor coming in. So, but in all seriousness, we're really delighted that you're here with us today.
Yeah, and you have had a really good partnership with GS1 US over the years. Can you talk a little bit about that partnership and if it's changed kind of the way you see supply chain as a whole?
It's a great question. We have been partnering with GS1 across both our brands. So Fast Company and Inc. both have partnered with GS1 over the years. It has been a mix of custom content creation. So we worked really closely with the GS1 US marketing team to help tell stories about the work that GS1 US does. And we have also done some programming together. So things like the panel that we just did with Bob and Sudarshan from Lineage and Greg from Walmart, that was part of the partnership. GS1, we're grateful for the fact that GS1 has identified Fast Company and Inc. as places that can help amplify and elevate the GS1 US story. And we also, because Inc. and Fast Company both also reach lots of small businesses and fast growth businesses, I think it's a way to try to market what GS1 US does to an audience that is not necessarily thinking about the work of GS1 US every day, the way you might have it at a Walmart, where there are people very much dedicated to thinking about barcodes and thinking about 2D and thinking about the information and data that can be resident in that. If you're a small business owner or the CEO of a fast growing company, this may not necessarily be front of mind for you. So our storytelling helps push that to the fore a little bit.
Yeah, it's very interesting. A couple of years ago when this all came about, I was really glad and excited about the potential because it's a different channel. And as a former entrepreneur, I had my own business in my mid 30s, did something really crazy, Liz. I got married, started a company and had a child and moved all in the same year and ended up having that for about 8 years before I sold it off. But until you're in the thick of it, you really don't know. And you're grasping everywhere for every little bit. It's that old adage of, I don't know what I don't know. Would somebody please tell me? And so I was always, reading magazines or looking things up online. So I love this different avenue that GS1 US is taking with you all.
But to answer your question about how it has opened my eyes, I always thought of the work of GS1 US and the barcode and the 2D systems as facilitating transactions. And what has opened my eyes is all of the information and intelligence that resides behind that and all of the different use cases, whether it is traceability, whether it is the ability to provide the consumer ultimately with more information about the provenance of a product that they were about to purchase. Like the consumer, I was a little bit ignorant to all of the potential that lies behind the barcode and the 2D technology. I just thought of it as transactional.
Of course, it just scratches the surface of what happens at point of sale. And there's all of these different use cases to what you said. And we heard about even inventory management and how the standards and how GS1 can help improve automation, inventory management, sustainability, all of those different use cases with that data. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. I say to my family, they're like, Dad, what do you do? And I was like, well, behind the scenes, it's not really that sexy or super exciting, but at the same time, it's very pivotal to the business and the industry. And I love the comment that was made earlier today, which is supply chain is a team sport. And there's all different angles you need to come from. And if we can leverage the same standard, it makes it all so much better. I'd like to hear from you. You speak to so many executives and leaders throughout the world. What are you hearing about supply chain? I mean, COVID made supply chain famous. We're 5 years past that. What are some big things that you're hearing? And, what are some trends that you're seeing come out of this?
I agree with you 100%. Supply chain was not something that many people were thinking about until we found ourselves in a potential supply chain crisis when we started to hear about shortages. I would say that the executives that I talked to are echoing a sentiment that we heard on the keynote panel today, which is that let's not let a crisis go to waste. Let us take advantage of the fact that we found ourselves having to innovate and accelerate around supply chain during a crisis, during a period of constraint. And how do we just continue to drive that innovation and acceleration of innovation, even though we're no longer in a crisis? Because while we're maybe not in a supply chain crisis, we are living in a period of incredible uncertainty.
Yeah.
We are living in a period where, whether it's market uncertainty, economic uncertainty, customer uncertainty, businesses just have to be able to move very quickly and move on a dime. And so I think that a lot of companies are using this as an opportunity to think about how they can innovate on their supply chain. And then the other piece of it is the sustainability piece as well. There continues to be globally an imperative around sustainability. And while there's perhaps a slight walking back of the rhetoric around environmental sustainability in US markets, the imperative from consumers, I think, remains unabated. And as we've talked about, as I'm sure many of your guests have highlighted, doing the right thing in a sustainability sense is just going to help your business.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know about you all, but I feel that the world has changed. I mean, I'm not the youngest here, but I grew up with the internet. I started working. I was a part of Cisco systems in the 90s when everyone thought a firewall was still a wall to stop fires and not a digital blocker. But it was a gradual. Then YouTube came about and it was again like, wow, what's going on? I mean, it's totally changed your marketplace with media and everything. And now AI, I feel it's just going so fast. Like things are really changing. Social media has such an impact on all of us. My kids are not going to get away from, I need to know where's that product coming from and how can I recycle it? And that information needs to be in there, and it needs to be authentic and trustworthy.
Yeah.
But to your point, I don't think like greenwashing isn't happening. Like it's here. The consumer's demanding it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And as many people have probably shared with you on this podcast and throughout GS1 Connect, when you are reducing packaging, you're reducing costs. When you are creating a leaner supply chain with less waste, you're reducing cost. These are all good things for your business. And if it happens to be great for the planet,
It's even better.
it's a bonus.
With all the things happening in the world today, the uncertainty, I guess, and the what I'm imagining is increase of supply and demand and the changing of supply and demand. As you're talking to leaders, how are they working on the ability to meet those different ups and downs and how to be resilient? You already mentioned innovation. What kind of innovation really are they thinking? Automation, kind of everything to see what sticks?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. And in a lot of cases, it starts with data. It starts with information that they can use to help them do better forecasting. It starts with information that they can share with their suppliers and their supply chain so that they can do a better job of forecasting orders, making sure that they're getting the right supply to the right place at the right time. We're definitely seeing, even before there was a movement to try to bring more manufacturing to the United States, there's been a move by a lot of companies to try to move finishing of their product closer to their customer because, again, there were the supply chain bottlenecks. And so they are looking for ways to sort of reduce the shipping costs associated with having to move a product, especially if it's a big one. A couple of years ago, I did a really interesting piece on HP, and part of their sustainability strategy was the refurbishment of equipment. So rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to buy a new gigantic printer or I'm going to buy a new gigantic copy machine, I'm going to go ahead and refurbish an existing machine or purchase a previously used machine. And a lot of that sounds like manufacturing, but it's also a supply chain issue because you need different kinds of equipment to do a repair than you do to build a machine from whole cloth. And so it was interesting, even though this was a sustainability initiative that impacted manufacturing or sort of rebuilding, a lot of it fell on the head of supply chain to figure out how to implement it.
Wow. These are the things you don't expect. It's like you go out and you're going to start doing something and then you get to it and you're like, oh, wow, we need to deal with this. There's no other team that's dealing with this.
Exactly. And it is the logistics that a supply chain is able to manage. And it is sort of, okay, now we used to have to pick up this equipment from a loading dock and having to distribute it. Now it's, okay, where do we ingest the old equipment, the used equipment? What facility does that go to? And what facility is best suited to refurbish it and has the least distance to the end user?
Yeah.
It's all logistics.
And sticking with like the transformation, looking at recent transformations within supply chains, what are some of the, what's the word I'm looking for, but the big takeaways that business leaders are seeing, or are there lessons learned that you're seeing as a trend with your executive conversations?
Since I'm not a deep expert on supply chain, I don't want to misspeak, but what I will say is that this theme of resilience has emerged. It started out as a conversation around supply chain resilience, that we needed to have either duplicative processes or we had to have backup systems. We had to basically have a way in order to get production back on track. That larger mentality seems to have permeated all of corporate America, that it's, yes, we need supply chain resilience, but we also need employee supply resilience. How do we deal with the vagaries and the changes in the labor markets? Companies are starting to think they have to be resilient in that area. So there's a lot of this notion of supply chain resilience has now permeated the C-suite and the boardroom, and companies are just thinking, how do we be resilient in every possible way and in every operation that we touch?
One of the key points that I heard from the panel was listening. and listening not only to your customers, but
Yeah.
listening to
Red Ducker.
internal conversations, whether it be at a manufacturing plant or a store. And I just thought that was so insightful because you can learn so much about your own organization just by listening to people who work there.
Yeah, I found that so humbling because, I mean, they have what did he say, 1.3 million employees in the United
Just in
States.
the US, 2 million
2
associates.
million worldwide. And they're doing town halls where it's like, please come in and just tell us how things are going. And this is the human factor. Like, they're really active listening.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So shifting human, it's not a very good shift, but whatever. Consumer. So we've been talking about organizations. When you think about the consumer and the expectations, and our expectations constantly evolve, whether it be shipping or, expecting something overnight. I remember when I moved to Atlanta and I could get something like same day.
Yeah.
I almost fell over. But what technologies and trends should companies be watching for so that they continue to be resilient and shift and be able to meet those demands of consumers?
We've highlighted a couple of those big shifts. I believe that social media will continue to play a really important factor in the relationship between the consumer and the brand. There's no question that consumers now have more agency and they will take to social media. They already have been. But what we're seeing more and more is that not just influencers, but man on the street consumer can have material impact on a company's business if something that they post or write about or talk about goes viral.
Yeah.
So I think brands need to figure out ways to nurture relationships with their consumers so that that is not just a one-way street, but a two-way street. How do you engage in a dialogue? And how do you basically turn your consumer into a member of a community?
Yeah. I think more so now, they've always said, you're going to need to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on and your ear down to, the road so you can listen. But I look at like the Stanley mug. That was a product that was on the end of life list for Stanley, which is a 100-year-old company. But it was a bunch of moms side hustling in Colorado that bought up all the inventory and actually went to them and all of a sudden it went viral. I mean, like 1,000% growth. Like, just crazy. And if there's one more Stanley that shows up in my house, Kristen, that's my wife, we might have to talk about it a little bit. Just kidding. Well, we can't thank you enough for your partnership and your involvement and the time here today at Connect. We do have 2 more questions for you, though.
Okay.
All right. Liz and I always ask these 2 questions and we trade them back and forth. So I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll go first. What's the technology you're using today, whether professionally or personally, that you just absolutely love?
Our company recently has started making the shift away from all of our different communications platforms to Microsoft Teams. And I know that's a really boring answer because no one thinks that Microsoft Teams is cool. I don't think Microsoft Teams is cool. But the ability to have all of my communications in one place so that I'm not wondering, was this a Slack message? Was it sent to me as a DM? Is it a text? Is it an email? It has been life-changing. So I'm going to go with a boring answer, but as a productivity tool for me personally, it has been transformative.
You guys systemized your communication.
We're in the process.
Yeah.
But for me, I have been very adamant that everything starts to move to Teams. And it's...
Because am I looking at my email? Did you text me? Is it a chat on 3 different platforms? Yeah. I love the simplicity of that.
I'm a simple gal.
Yep. Okay, so this one's going to be fun. What would you like to learn about in the next year?
I'll give you one business answer and I'm going to give you one fun answer. I've started taking piano lessons again after playing as a kid. And then I picked it up because both of my kids went off to college and we had the piano and the piano teacher had all this time on his hands. So I said, I will hire you and you can teach me. So I would really like to master a couple of my Chopin nocturnes that are really, really like I'm going to wrestle these babies to the ground. That's the thing I would like to learn this year. On a professional level, I would actually like to learn more about quantum computing. I want to zig while everybody's zagging. Everybody's going for the generative AI, and these are not unrelated, but I feel like I'm about an inch deep on quantum, and I'd really like to know more.
Quirk bits.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the stability and the cold and
it's parallel to the natural world. That's what it interests me. It's this idea that we're going to build a computing platform that mirrors what is happening in nature, which is really sort of the ultimate
Yeah.
operating system.
Yeah, no, it's this is kind of like we go back and forth. I'm more the techie, nerdy, geeky side. She's more the cool, hip, side of things. But
You're a little bit country. She's a little bit rock.
yeah, that's it. But I've been following.
To Nashville, and nobody knows what that is because like 7 people in the world still know who Donnie and Marie were.
And they look the same. That's what's blowing my mind. Okay, they look the same. But I've been following quantum computing now for about 6 years, maybe almost 7. And it is intriguing, terrifying, and oh my gosh, could be the coolest thing that ever happens in our lifetime. So that's really cool.
Yep.
Well, listen, Stephanie, thank you so much again. This was a lot of fun. We appreciate you being here. And I don't think we failed. I don't know that we got A.
No, A+ for both of you.
Oh,
Yeah, good job. Good job.
Awesome.
Make me look good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.